Okay, class, you should be at chapter one. We'll get started. So, chapter one, we're basically getting into studying personality. We're going to look at assessment, research, and also theories. Just to give you a quick outline of this chapter, we're going to study the study of personality, the place of personality in history, define a definition of personality, personality, the internet and social networking, ethics and gender issues, assessments in the study of personality, research in the study of personality, theory in the study of personality, and questions about human nature. That should be everything that we cover from this chapter. Okay. So let's look into it. The study of personality. First of all, everyone has one. You might think you're thinking, okay, I know some people who don't have a personality. Who'll say things like, you have no personality at all. Well, in actuality, we all have a personality. Our personality governs um, how we respond to the world around us. So just imagine for a second, I'll give you a good example. Let's take someone who's aggressive. They have an aggressive personality. And you wanted to just say hi to them that day. Okay, in their world is very aggressive. So even though you might come at them in a very happy way, they're going to assume that you're being aggressive. So you could say, "Hey, how is your day today?" And in their mind, they're going to think, "Oh, they're out to get me. They're trying to trap me. They're trying to embarrass me or help make me make a mistake. I can't trust them, so I can't let my guard down." So they give you a very aggressive question or answer. What do you mean? How was my day? What are you trying to get at? You're like, oh, I'm just trying to see how you were doing today. Well, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Because in their world is aggressive. All right. So everyone has one. Everyone has a personality. Personality is complex to describe. We try to simplify it, so we give it very simple names, like she has a bubbly personality, or he is a very kind and gentle person, or he's very aggressive. So we try to simplify personality, but it's actually a collection of a lot of different aspects. We'll look at those aspects in this chapter, but it's important to understand that each one of these aspects, whether it's environmental, whether it's biological, whether it's emotional, just your frame of reference, your personality is complex and sometimes very difficult to study. All right, so the study study the forces and factors that shape personality. So in here, you gotta understand. Let's go spiritual for a second. God says we don't fight against flesh and blood, but spirits and principalities. So yes, are there factors or forces? I mean, that impress our personality? Yes. Can it be spiritual sometimes? Yes. Can it be purposely done? Yes. I mean, you think about commercials, for example. People spend billions of dollars on commercials so that they can get some type of money in return, so some type of profit in return. Do you really think they would do that if it was not working? No. They know that if they can impress on you a certain belief, they will basically control what you do. We did an experiment one time where I think a teacher had brought some sodas to class, bought a bucket of Sprite and a bucket of Dr. Pepper. And she put the Sprite on one side and the Dr. Pepper on the other, put them in ice, made them both look good. And she told the students that they can have a soda at the end of class. Now there were 13 students in this class, so there was 13 Sprites, 13 Dr. Pepper. She had her own drink. She pulled out her Sprite and she opened up the cap during class. And as she was talking, she would take a swig and she would just dramatize like, this is so good. Best Sprite ever. And she would sip the Sprite on her counter, and she let it sit there, and it would glisten, and you could see that it was nice and cold. And she would stick it back into the ice bucket during class, make sure it was cold again, get it back out, take another sip, put it on the counter. And then at the end of class, she said, "Okay, you guys make sure y'all get your drink and see you later." And she noticed, and at the end of class, remember, there was 13 drinks on each side, so it was even with the classmates. There were more Sprites taken than there were Dr. Peppers. So there can be forces, unseen forces is believed. There could be unseen forces and factors that shape personality that can cause you to pick and decide to do the things that you do. Each theory, and then as we go on, each theory provides a piece of the grand puzzle. So as we study personality, as we look at the different theorists in personality, you're gonna see how they're actually a combination of just growing upon each other in different aspects. So you have your behavioralist, you have your cognitive therapist, you have your or cognitive therapy, you have your psychoanalysis. You're going to have your different approaches of different theorists, and you're going to see how they all can be used together in this explanation of personality. All right, personality and history. So we'll start off kind of explaining in history how it kind of started. Really, it came from two fields: philosophy and physiology. See, we were in this age of everything needs to be proven, scientifically. But there was things that just couldn't be explained. One being why people do what they do. That's the premise of psychology. Why do people do what they do? So, who we consider the father of psychology? And he wasn't necessarily trying to develop the field of psychology, more so trying to just quantify why we do what we do so that we can move on with other things because no one really wanted to tackle this topic. So he focused on the consciousness. And that was Wilhelm Wundt, a very weird name. But yeah, he kind of started this in 1879, and he developed the first psychological laboratory where you can study things of interest in psychology. He focused on consciousness. Personality is too multidimensional to study. So what he wanted to do is just study what is it that we are aware of? What is it? Why do you know, what is this concreteness? The sky is blue, the ground is hard. If you get hit, you might get upset. It's just your conscious. How are you feeling right now? Your conscious of awareness of the here and now. Um, so as that went on, others starting to question that, just looking at your conscious awareness and saying, no, there's more to conscious awareness. Your conscious awareness usually cause some type of reaction. And so you have people like John B. Watson in the 20th century who says, you know what, we really need to study behavior, which is personality is what you can see and observe. You can see how a person responds because you could say one thing, you might say this, but you respond in a whole nother way. I might be angry, but I'll walk away laughing. So we have to look at how behavior plays a part. Then you have Sigmund Freud, who said, no, okay, yeah, we can look at behavior, but we also need to look at the unconscious. He kind of developed psychoanalysis, where he looked at the things we are not necessarily aware of. And this is important up until this time. Nobody is really considering what we might not be consciously aware of. So even though we're thinking, everything that comes to mind, that it has to come to mind before our act, sometimes, there are things that are playing in our that are not in our awareness that are causing us to respond. There's subliminal messages, there's messages that we can't detect, there's experiences that we've had growing up that influence. I remember specifically, I'll tell you one. I was going overseas for the first time. I was actually going over to Ukraine. I was visiting Russia and Poland. We was going on a crusade, and I was going to my family, letting them know that hey, I was going overseas. And the question that kept coming back is like, hey, we don't go places like that. We don't fly into countries, unfamiliar countries. That's not something that you do. And it helped me recognize, because before I decided to go, I was having all these fears about going. And I finally pushed them out of my head and said, well, I'm going to go. But I didn't recognize that some of those fears probably were designed already inside of me based off of experience that I had growing up about things that I'm capable or not capable of doing. So you're talking about things that were not in my awareness, which would be my unconscious awareness. It says personality is the whole person, both conscious and unconscious. We are a combination of both. I think Maslow kind of put it as like an iceberg, whereas everything above water is the things that we're consciously aware of, but we know where the most of the mass of an iceberg is underwater, which is our unconscious. Most of the things that affect us that we are dealing with are beneath the water. All right, and then we have scientific, the study of science and applying it to personality. Personality is what can be studied using the scientific method. We'll talk a lot about that as we go along in this chapter. So, definition of personality: how others see us. The external persona or the mask. You see, first of all, personality derives from the Latin word persona, which is kind of describing how actors perform, or the mask that actors would wear. But yeah, so persona is what we're projecting to the world. Now, there are some beliefs that we have about persona. One is that it's enduring and stable, meaning that how a person is usually going to be how they are. It's not going to deviate much. If you know Tim to be a pretty laid back, cool person, generally you're going to get a cool, laid back person. But if Mike is usually a kind of jump off, gets aggressive, you anticipate him to be that way. So, and you might choose to hang with them or spend time with them based off of how you know them, because you believe that their persona, their personality is pretty stable, relatively stable. All right, but we also believe that personality is unique. But like I said, I don't know if I said this before, but if I was to start describing you, someone you knew without telling you their name, like, yeah, I know this guy. He's always talking about his car and how his rims spin, and he's always um, throwing his money in the air, and he says this. He has this slogan that he likes to say, and you're like, oh man, wait a minute, I know this guy. I know this guy, and you don't even know his name, but because you believe personality is unique, you put a reference to those characteristics, and you decide, hey, this person belongs to this characteristics. Now, there are debates that personality is limited, meaning that there are different types of personalities, but there's only a certain number of those types of personality. It's not an infinite, everybody is like a snowflake, but like everybody's going to fall in certain categories and groups. That's something we will discuss more. I wish we could have a discussion about that, because that's going to be very important. We have personality traits that we try to quantify and put it in, and that's important when we talk about the scientific method, is to be able to say, okay, this is going to fall into one of these categories certain percentage amount of the time. So personality is the unique, relatively enduring internal and external aspect of a person's character that influences behavior. Okay, so internet and social networking. Let's talk a little bit about that. We kind of change off a lot in this chapter. They're trying to cover a lot, so we're going to talk about a lot. So, first of all, in this new age that we're in with internet and social media, we have to consider how it is shaping personality. Um, in a lot of ways, not always good either. Um, it reduces psychological well-being and decreases the quality of relationships. Here's ways that it does that. For one, and we've done some studies, and it's in the book, about how it lowers your um, connection while heightening your feeling of anonymity, meaning that you don't feel like you feel more inclined to say things that you wouldn't normally say in person, and you feel more protected that you can get away with it because I don't know, and I'm assuming here maybe because you think you're giving it to a machine, or that your identity is more secure. So it has been shaping. Um, it has been shaping a lot about who we are and stuff like that.